A quiet house on a summer night. You stand at the curb on a sleepy street in Springfield, Missouri as June warmth lingers on the pavement. It's the night after graduation, 1992. Porch lights hum. Sprinklers click. Inside a modest one-story home, three women should be winding down Sherrill Levitt, the meticulous hairstylist and mother. Suzie Streeter, recent graduate with that post-ceremony glow. Stacy McCall, Suzie's friend, still giddy from the long day. You picture soft laughter shoes by the door, a TV whispering somewhere in the background. Normal life paused at midnight. Earlier the evening had been a whirl of parties, photos, and last hugs. Plans changed as plans do. The girls decided not to sleep at a crowded friend's house. They'd head to Suzie's instead. Quieter, easier, a place where tomorrow's trip to the water park could start without chaos. You notice how small decisions look harmless until they cast a long shadow. A left turn instead of right. One address instead of another. In the driveway, a car waits where it should be. Inside, purses and makeup bags sit where they'd naturally land. You feel the baseline of order. Sherrill is known for beds-made magazines, stacked a tidy kitchen that could pass an early morning inspection. You sense a woman who liked things in their place, and a home that felt safe enough that night to leave doors unlocked for friends coming and going. The neighborhood breathes its usual rhythm. A dog barks 2 streets over. A single bulb at the porch gives the front steps a buttery glow. Nothing announces itself as ominous. No broken window, no loud voices, no fleeing footsteps. Just an ordinary night and 3 ordinary people. You glance at the calendar hanging in your mind. June 6th becomes June 7th, while nobody's paying attention. A small hour passes those strange in-between minutes when air conditioners purr louder than they should, and even birds pause in the trees. And then you let a simple truth settle in by morning. Nothing in this house will make sense. Not the beds, not the phones, not the absent voices. Something interrupts the ordinary rhythm, and the silence that follows will echo for decades. You step closer in your imagination. You hear a phone ringing into emptiness. You notice a porch light with a shattered globe, slivers of glass that someone may later sweep away in a well-meaning gesture. You feel the strangeness of a home that looks almost too neat, like a stage set left after actors walk off mid-scene. You don't know it yet, but you've arrived at the beginning of an American mystery that never closes. 3 women, 1 night, no trace. And a house that refuses to tell you what it saw. The timeline tightens. You rewind the evening frame by frame. Graduation parties taper, cars shuttle friends across town. Suzie and Stacy bounce from one celebration to another, doing what seniors do, hugging, promising to keep in touch, laughing like the future is already here. Sometime after 2 a.m., they decide to call it a night. The packed friend house feels crowded. Sleep will be impossible. Suzie suggests her place. It's quieter. Her mom, Sherrill, will already be home. The timeline condenses. A last stop may be a quick chat in a driveway, then the car turns toward the Levitt residence. You picture a porch light lit, welcoming enough to dispel the late hour. Inside, Sherrill may still be awake flipping channels. Or she's already asleep trusting this neighborhood as she always has. What investigators will later piece together is a run of ordinary actions. The girls arrive, purses land in their usual places, jewelry is removed and set aside. A dog's small anxious pads the hallway. The house carries the smell of a clean kitchen and a recent shower. Everything routine. Routine is deceptive. Routine. The morning has plans a water park trip with friends, sunscreen and towels, an easy summer day. Parents expect phone calls. Carpool times float around. No one expects a problem quite yet. After all, teenagers run late, alarms fail, and June sunshine can tug sleep beyond intention. But the clock cares nothing for plans. And neither does whatever happens next. You mark a few more points on the invisible timeline. A shattered porch light globe that someone may pick up thinking they're helping, not realizing they've disturbed a clue. Early callers get no answer, which is odd, but not alarming. By late morning, odd becomes worry. Friends arrive. Knock, knock. No response. The dog is present and agitated. Beds look barely used or still made. Phones ring through. The timeline has a shape now. It has openings where something might slip in. A window of opportunity measured not in hours, but in minutes enough for bad luck to find a door and step inside. History calls this a disappearance. Inside your head, it's still a sequence of real people moving through a real space, unaware of the page turning under their feet. And the question you carry from this chapter to the next is simple, sharp, and impossible. When did the ordinary stop, and why didn't the house make more noise when it did? You move through the Levitt home as careful as a museum visitor. The living room holds its breath. In the kitchen, a tidy sink. In a bedroom, a bedspread almost too straight, the kind of smoothness that feels staged by accident. On a small table, phones wait like faithful servants for orders that never arrive. The dog, restless, perhaps tells you something's off in a language that isn't words. You take inventory without touching anything. Purses are here, that's important. Keys, cigarettes, makeup, also here. Personal items that typically anchor a person to the day are still tethered to this house. A car sits outside when in any normal morning, it might be 2 towns away in a water park parking lot. You notice how absence can be louder than presence. The absent note, the absent good morning call, the absent footprints in dew. Then there's the porch light, its glass globe reportedly broken shards later swept by a well-meaning visitor. It's the kind of domestic mishap that happens 100 ways: a bumped shoulder, a misaimed toss, a sudden grip on the doorframe. But in a mystery, each shard feels like an orphan sentence. Was the glass broken during the night? Before the girls arrived, after small acts of kindness, tidying, straightening, washing a cup, become accidental edits to a scene that needed preserving. Everyone did what people naturally do in a house that belongs to a friend they tried to make it look right. And that may have made it harder to see what went wrong. You keep moving. A curling iron cools. A TV remote rests. The air suggests a normal bedtime that didn't exactly happen. No forced entry leaps out at you. No overturned chair. No scuff that insists here. Here is where the struggle was. It's as if the house refuses to register the event, as if the night unfolded like a whisper and took its secrets along. Investigators will say that early walk-ins, loving, worried human, complicated the forensic picture. Lines blur in memory: who noticed the broken globe first, who swept up, who silenced the answering machine, who shifted a purse to look for a note. Each action was reasonable in a world where people sleep late and forget to call. But in a cold case, reason and regret sometimes rhyme. So you stand in the living room and accept the paradox. The scene looks almost too normal for a triple disappearance. Normal can be camouflage. Normal hides motion behind a closed door. And in this house, normal is the loudest thing you hear. Phones are characters in this story. You remember their weight, the elastic coil, the click when a call connects. That morning, lines will ring and ring. Messages will be left, some routine, some worried, maybe a few that feel unsettling. In certain accounts, early visitors mention inappropriate or prank like calls around that time, disturbing enough to stick in memory, not definitive enough to close a case. Details vary in retellings, which is what happens when fear and kindness and all the wrong moments overlap. The essential truth is that telephones, those lifelines, didn't bridge the gap. Calls did not produce voices. Plans did not become confirmations. A parent who expected a meetup gets nothing but the soft burr of unanswered rings. In hindsight, every missed call feels like a flare drifted past the window. You picture someone pressing play on an answering machine, listening to messages that do not help. A visitor may have cleared a message thinking it irrelevant or inappropriate, not knowing that in mysteries, even nonsense might carry context. It is nobody's fault. It is how homes work and how friends take care of each other when a morning runs late. But afterward, this ordinary behavior feels like erasing pencil lines from a map no one else remembered to draw. Telephones become a metaphor. They promise connection, but in this house, they gave only silence and loose ends. The more you think about it, the more you feel how fragile timelines are when built from ringing and not answering from, "I thought she was with you," and maybe they left early. The case grows not from evidence, but from absences. Around evidence calls that never landed, messages that didn't renew the day, a line that hummed but refused to speak. If the house is a stage, the phones are spotlights that stay dark. And you walking room to room learn how bewildering a mystery can be when even the machines designed to connect us become part of the disconnect. A van, a streetlight, and eyewitness memory. Every town rumor has a vehicle, and in this case, it's often a green or moss-colored van. Different tellings trace it to late hours or early dawns near this intersection or that side street. Some witnesses recall a man's voice urging a woman to get back inside. Others hesitate. Memory is a living thing shaped by time, repetition, and the need to make a story make sense. You stand under a sodium streetlight in your mind and watch the van idle. The color shifts with the lamp glow, green teal, maybe just gray, stained by shadow. Eyewitness accounts never arrive like photographs. They arrive like paintings, brush strokes, impressions, a sense of motion, a tone. Investigators collect them carefully, then set them against one another, looking for lines that overlap more than they diverge. The van becomes a vessel for the imagination, the place a person might be urged to enter, the way a person might vanish without the house registering the struggle. Was it there? Was it a different make entirely? Historians of criminal investigation will tell you that vehicles and neighborhood canvases are both gold and quicksand, invaluable when real, dangerously seductive when assumed. You mark this as a motif rather than a fact. A possible van, a possible voice, a possible staging area close enough to explain the house's refusal to testify. The door could have opened. The night could have been quiet. A conversation could have sounded like nothing to a neighbor rolling over in bed. The van might be a key or a mirage. The most honest sentence you can carry forward is also the hardest. Multiple reports mention a greenish van. Their reliability varies. None have resolved the case. The image remains useful enough to remember, not sturdy enough to stand on. The cemetery story and other rumors that linger. Unsolved cases accumulate rumors like addicts gather boxes. One that lingers in local memory involves a cemetery, a whispered suggestion that the missing might have been moved or concealed in a place built for the quiet. The specifics shift with each retelling, a name, a direction, an urgent midnight errand none of the official files can fully anchor. Investigators chase leads when they rise above rumor. They mark the rest for future comparison. You weigh what cemeteries symbolize: secrecy, solemnity, the illusion of easy concealment. But cemeteries are public, visited, tended. Digging is noisy. Fresh soil is talkative. If this rumor were a roadmap, it would still lack mile markers. Even so, it's part of the ecosystem of the case, because people try to convert fear into stories that sound like answers. The cemetery thread joins others' tips about construction pores that happened around that summer. A patch of ground that seemed disturbed a place where concrete was laid, and nobody is sure what the ground looked like before. Each idea contains a grain that might be worth sifting, yet none result in the clear, verifiable discovery the families and city deserve. You learn to hear rumors without letting them drive. You listen for the small, consistent details, times, distances, verifiable transactions that can upgrade a whisper to a lead. And you accept that in a mystery this stark, the mind will search for shape in fog, naming silhouettes that may not exist. Still, you don't dismiss the emotional logic. People tell stories because silence is heavy. A rumor is a way of lifting a corner of the weight. You file it under unconfirmed and walk gently past the idea that a resting place might hide what the town cannot. Persons of interest without accusation. In the vacuum of answers, attention turns carefully to persons of interest. You keep your voice respectful. A case can examine patterns without condemning people. Over the years, investigators have considered individuals whose timelines, backgrounds, or comments drew scrutiny. Some had criminal histories that made them more visible. Some said things that sounded like hints, then faded under closer examination. Others were adjacent to circles of friends or work, their proximity raising questions that evidence did not answer. You observe a fact of unsolved cases: interest is not guilt. Law enforcement can weigh opportunity, capability, and motive and still come away with uncertainty. The task then becomes to keep files ready for the day technology sharpens. DNA methods improve. Phone records once thought ordinary might be remined. A long retired detective's memory might link two details that never shared a page. So you speak about persons of interest the way you walk through the Levitt house, hands off, eyes open, naming what's public without adding weight that isn't earned. The aim is not theater, it's clarity. This chapter acknowledges that investigators did not sit still. Interviews were conducted, alibis were checked, tips were logged. Some avenues narrowed to nothing. Others remain bookmarked threads waiting for a tug only new information can give. You leave this chapter with humility. In a story, this spare a single verifiable detail, a receipt, a mileage note, a rediscovered photo could shift emphasis. Until then, a measured tone serves the truth better than a dramatic one. Forensics missed chances and the unforgiving early hours. You return to the first morning and see how ordinary concern created extraordinary complications. Friends and family, worried by silence and missed plans, entered the house to check. They tidied, they called, they comforted the small dog they stepped on and around what might one day have been evidence. No one imagined they were encountering a crime scene. They thought they were helping. That is how life works, and it is also how mysteries harden. The porch light's broken globe, if it was swept a timeline, lost a notch. An answering machine, if a message was erased unintentionally or out of discomfort context, thinned. Foot traffic multiplied without logs. The home's gentle order got gentler, and the day's early record blurred. None of this is blame. It is the sad algebra of minutes. you cannot get back. Forensics in 1992 did not have today's toolkit. DNA collection was careful but limited. Digital trails were few. Doorbell cameras didn't exist. Cell phones were rare. A neighborhood canvas depended on who was home, who slept lightly, who remembered what. In that environment, a scene that looked too normal became a locked drawer with a missing key. You feel the lesson investigators teach new recruits: scenes must be preserved immediately and thoroughly. But you also feel the human truth that nobody recognized the scene for what it was until the chance to preserve it had already slipped. Time moves forward whether or not a case does. Carpets get replaced, paint covers scuffs, people move, paper records misfile, and yet sometimes the future brings its own rescue techniques improve. Cold case units reopen boxes. A smudge once meaningless becomes a profile. If this chapter feels heavy, you let it be heavy, because it is the weight of what can't be rewound and the hope that later something still might be recovered from the quiet. The theories we carry. You line up the major theories like chairs in a room and sit in each for a moment. Targeted abduction. Someone knew who was in the house and when. It explains the lack of chaos, a knock, a familiar voice, a reason to step outside. Weakness requires foreknowledge and nerve and leaves almost no trace. Crime of opportunity. A stranger passes, sees an opening, acts quickly. It fits the unlocked house moment. Weakness opportunity often leaves mess, and this scene resists that. Single offender versus multiple. One person could control with a weapon or deception. More than one could move faster, manage more than one victim. Weakness. Either choice must also explain why the house looks paused, not overturned. Rapid removal. A vehicle may be a van close enough that the threshold itself became the scene. Strong for explaining indoor quiet. Weak for the thinness of verified sighting. A staged normal. The idea that the interior neatness is the result of conscious staging. It's a dramatic theory, and its weakness is the absence of proof it occurred. Historians of unsolved crime point out that without physical anchors, theories are best treated as scaffolds useful for reaching higher vantage points, not structures to live in. You acknowledge the house's stillness, the phone's unhelpfulness, the rumor's insistence, the green van's allure. Then you set them down and let the quiet be quiet. What remains is not a flourish but a practice. Keep the facts aligned. Resist the gravitational pull of stories that wrap too neatly. Hold space for one detail someday to break the tie. Where the case stands in a gentle close, you walk back to the curb where you began, the June air cooler now, the street dimmer, the house outlined against a patient sky. The case of the Springfield Three endures active in memory, watched over by families, friends, investigators, and strangers who learned the names and never forgot them.